Test the claim.
I love everything. They'll equally say things like, never take advice from your wife.
And then there's also the hadith that if you dream and you see a woman, a donkey, and a dog, I think it's bad luck or something like that. So they're equating a woman to, the level of a donkey and a dog. So this is, like I said before, this is the height of misogyny. So
I don't know about the hadith, but if it's there, I would love to look into it. I know about the hadith that says that a dog and a donkey and a female invalidates your prayer. And the women, when they heard that during the lifetime of the Prophet, were very, very upset about it. I read about it, it's a very long time ago, but there was a response to it, which I can't recall now.
So would you agree with me then that, a religion like, Sunni Islam, let's not call it Islam because that's not what Islam is, that's Sunni Islam. A religion like Sunni Islam is patriarchal, yes or no?
Honestly, I'm not trying to run away from the answering this. But I think it's a very, very complex question that you're asking me, because you're asking me, is Sunni Islam, were they responsible to create societies where male predominantly were in charge and running society? I would say yes.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another question for you. A situation in nature whereby males are in charge.
Yeah.
Such a situation arises if there is a state of strife or a state of war.
Yeah.
Is that right or wrong? Because males are physically stronger, so if there's war, then males would naturally be in charge.
Does that mean women should be in charge in peacetime?
Exactly, and that's what happens. Whenever there's a sustained period of peace, eventually women become in charge, right?
I don't know where's that happened historically. I don't know.
We know of some matriarchal societies. Some of them are like
very peaceful,
like semi-mythological. But actually, the one I'm thinking of is has been depicted as a race of warrior women.
The Amazonians.
No, there's one in China actually. It's real and they're very peaceful.
Well, the one I'm referring to, although I refer to it as semi-mythological, but actually it's a real people. The Greeks, there's Greek pottery that depicts Greek warriors fighting against these warrior women, the Amazons, not Amazonians.
Yeah, Amazons.
The Amazonians are from the Amazon rainforest.
Amazons.
The Amazons are actually thought of historically as a tribe of Scythian warrior women who spoke an Iranian. They were part of the Iranian ethno-linguistic group, and the name Amazon comes from Hamizan, which means all women, which alludes to the matriarchal makeup of their society.
So can it be argued then that to sustain patriarchy, it entails a state of war, a constant state of strife, some kind of conflict. Otherwise, matriarchy will take over.
Well, the male aspect of humanity, which I'm assuming you're depicting with your headdress here, in some.
This is the mother goddess.
Is the mother not the inverted?
Look at it the other way around.
It depends which way you look at it, right? I guess we consider ourselves, or the male, to be the warlike aspect of the human.
Exactly. So would you say there are such things as war gods? Is Odin, as an example, a war god? Are they war gods?
Ares is considered the god of war.
Great.
Right?
Are the other goddesses throughout history considered fertility goddesses? So they're the opposite of war because they're fertility, to flourish, while the male is the fecundating factor, the females are the reproducing factor. So we can argue that there's such things as war gods and fertility goddesses.
But like with the Olympians, for example, the Olympian gods, do the women or do the feminine divinities also not participate in war?
They do. They're summoned. They're summoned.
They're called to fight against the Titans in the Olympian mythology, for example. Whether they lead war or not, I don't know, but I believe they participate.
No, but who is the head of the pantheon? Isn't it Zeus?
Sure.
So it's still a male god that's in charge. But let me put it to you
Hera,
this way. Let me put it to you this way.
Hera also commands the sharp end of a spear, as far as I'm aware.
Isn't that kind of like Kali? Because the other gods refused to tell Kali when she was fighting the demon the truth that he can only be defeated by the naked body of a female, and she didn't know that, so she could have died, and that's why she changed from Durga to Kali. She was actually Durga. So if you look at the whole thing, you can then say that Jesus, for instance, Christianity, that's a patriarchal religion, and that's also a war god. Can the same be said with Islam? Would you say Islam is a war god? Is a war religion?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think, especially if you look at the scripture, if you scrutinize the scripture quite well, you'll find that it's a very reactionary book that gives you, and a proactive book that gives you injunction on how to act when human nature activates itself.
But it comes with injunctions for peacetime and wartime, right?
No,
Yeah.
but given the framework
It
of,
works.
of war gods and fertility goddesses, where would you put a religion like Islam and Christianity? Does it fall under fertility goddess, or does it fall under the framework of
I've never really thought of it
male
in those terms. However, just looking like from a socio-political or geopolitical perspective on that region at that time in history, it feels to me like the revelation coincided with the need to unify the peoples of that land with a view to some kind of military action.
So it's a war god.
In a wider
So it's a
sense.
war god.
Like
I
in a regional
don't know.
sense.
I think it's a very, I don't know. I wouldn't say so, because if you think about, if you think about just the way the genesis of the religion. I mean, there's many books in the Bible where the genesis is to pick up the sword and go and fight. You know, like for some strange reason in Islam, that does not seem to be the case. The case is to go and profess.
But wasn't it a revolutionary movement? Wasn't it?
Yeah, but
wasn't it
revolution does
to
not mean
upturn
war.
The status quo?
No, it wasn't.
So the destruction of the idols in the Kaaba, for example.
That happens towards the end.
But I mean, didn't it all happen with a view to that
No,
being part of its story?
no. One of the things they used to blame the Prophet was that he came to cause disunity amongst the elders.
No, actually, how I started this point I made was the opposite. It was to unify a disparate group of people.
No, but you asked me if you said to me, was it not that Islam came to destroy?
No, I think I said to unify.
Yeah.
And obviously, you have to break some eggs to make an omelette.
Yeah,
And I think overall it was to unify a disparate group of people into one movement.
The thing was that and I would even classify Christianity under this. It seems as if there is a message that is addressed to a countless of people. You know, there's a message is addressed to the beggars and the proletariat, and and then there's a message that is addressed to the Pharisees, and but it never tells the Pharisees to wane off the power. You know, it just tells them to go back to what you're supposed to follow. So it's more like a reminder of and that's why you find a lot of the people in the Quran say, well, our forefathers used to do it, right? So it's not a revolutionary movement in the sense of Cromwell. You know, Cromwell, he dissociates himself from the church. You know, he says, the Catholics, no, we want absolutely nothing to do with you any longer, and we're going to use force to do this. It's many years of talking and in fact being abused for a very long time, until a militaristic aspect of the religion.
So are you pushing back against the against the word revolutionary? Or?
No, I'm pushing. I wouldn't call Islam a war religion per se. I wouldn't say it's a.
But revolutionary, you might.
Yeah, it was revolutionary in many aspects, but there were also many things that the Meccans used to practice that Islam usurped, that Islam withheld. You know, even like the ritualistic. We talk about this a lot.
You're saying that the uptake of arms in the establishment of Islam as a regional power was in response to the resistance.
Yeah. I would classify that more in that way. Yeah.
But I guess if you were to accept the message, you would assume that it was always known that
the prophet
it would ultimately result in war.
The prophet wasn't. The prophet was not moving like Che Guevara was moving, right? If that makes sense.
Not a militia from his.
Nah, it was him being part of. It was him. Hey, how you doing? He was part of a society. He was part of a ruling clan. He was well known, and he said, "Hey, look, there's something I want to tell you guys." And people are like, "We know you, but don't say this stuff, okay?" Yeah, it's more like that.
And then it kind of just escalated.
And it escalates to that situation afterwards. But it's interesting the way you're dividing. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
You got to break things into the.
No, it's beautiful. War, because these things are important. Very important.
If we look at it historically, we do know that there have been war gods and fertility goddesses, and also keep in mind that if you look at the Kaaba, you would see the Shiv Ling. In Hinduism, we have the adoration of the lingam, or in other words, it's to put it crudely, it's a vagina.
Right.
Yeah, it's a vagina. And if you look at the shape of the black stone, the Hajar al-Aswad in the Kaaba, you would see that it's fashioned in much the same way as it's reminiscent of the lingam in Hinduism.
But
so I would argue that this comes from a time in the remote Arab history when they were matriarchal, and there was an adoration of the female reproductive organ, and that's what's symbolized in the Kaaba.
This is not playing an explicit role in Islam, but you're saying that this remains there as an echo of the pre-Islamic.
It's an echo of pre-Islamic.
But how is that even possible if... Sorry, apologies.
Okay. No, okay, let me put it this way. Because if you look at because I see things in what they symbolize rather than what the people try to say it is. So if you look at the kiswa in the Kaaba, which is the black cloth that costs apparently $30 million to make or something like that. So that is the same veil that females are veiled with. In Saudi, females wear black. So you can see a relationship. Therefore, the Kaaba is it's pretty much a feminine entity. So we can see, like you said, the echoes of what it used to be. Yeah. So we can argue that it used to be a fertility goddess over there.
Would you also infer that from the vessel-like characteristics of the Kaaba, in the sense that things go into it, things were kept inside it?
Yes, it's also an orifice that you put things inside. And then if you look at the other ritual that they do in the Kaaba, the stoning of the devil, it used to literally be a phallus, an obelisk that people would stone. So that arguably is stoning the patriarchy. So we can see that throughout history there's always been either fertility goddesses or male war gods. Okay. So there's two things. You talked about the black stone, right? And this is like a well-known fact. The way the black stone looks now, it's not how it always looked like. It was actually much more bigger. And this is post-Islam. That this black stone was actually kidnapped.
Yeah.
Right?
It was broken up.
And it was broken. Right? So
in the year 900 by the
so it was a development that took place in order for it to look the way it looks today. And the black cloth on top of the Kaaba is also something very new. It was not always there. There's, in fact, there's images I've seen, black and white images of the Kaaba without the kiswa. So again, this is like
it's been rebuilt many times.
Yeah. So
there's also it's so interesting that we're talking about this now, because I was looking at some images earlier from the interior of the Kaaba. So there's the door of Tawbah. So it's like a gold door. I think it was gold leaf once upon a time. I think it may be solid gold now. And I mean, it could be anything, but it could be like a seal of some kind. But it looks like from a lay perspective, it looks like a sun. And then below it, there's another disc. I don't know what that disc represents. Maybe the moon, maybe a different celestial body.
What's interesting is, you know, in Mali, in the back in the days of the empire, there used to be a place which was called Tada Makkah, which in Tuareg language literally means this is Mecca. So in that place, people used to go around, perform the Hajj ritual over there. So throughout history, there have been many different Kaabas, including one in the southern Arabian city of Rayhan,
I've heard this
if I'm
before.
not mistaken.
I've heard this before.
It used to be called the Kaaba of the white stone, and there was another Kaaba, the Kaaba of the red stone.
Yeah.
So, you know, there were many Kaabas around the world, and they have all been fertility goddesses. So what I'm trying to say is, instead of looking, you know, at Sunni Islam in face value and taking what they tell us, why don't we look at the symbolism that's there that predates these patriarchs, and maybe we can glean into.
Yeah, but like
really
just to correct again what you were saying about the Kaaba and this black stone, this was a post-development that took place. This was not something that was there.
You mean the way it's encased now?
Yeah,
Right.
it wasn't
the stone
old.
was there from the
Yeah,
time of the revelation.
yeah, but it was not.
It wasn't displayed the way it is.
Yeah, it was just a stone for what.
But it was the subject of some interaction, right? Like there was interaction between it and the Prophet, for example.
Yeah.
However, it wasn't clear, or it was assumed that it could do. Correct me if my wording is wrong, but it was assumed to be able to do no good or harm.
Yeah, there was
It could do
no
no good and no harm in kissing it.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the Prophet wasn't aware of something deeper, but that nothing was ever really said about it, right?
Yeah.
Or may have been part of an older tradition. I mean, it must have been.
And it's
It
also
wasn't just done
it's
spontaneous.
also encased in silver. Silver is the alchemical metal of the moon, so it's also related to the moon goddess.
I don't know if 200 years ago people were thinking about this, but perhaps they were. I find very interesting. So you said something about, to the brothers, you said Allah, the way we understand Allah, and I concur, I agree, that there's a very like masculine connotation attached to it, wrongfully, I believe. But
an assumption.
yeah, but it's so weird that there's certain names that Allah has that you can invoke that have a very female-esque from what we understand.
But the assumption is like partly a linguistic, or one that's inferred from the linguistic tradition.
Yeah, that is separate.
Yeah.
I'm saying conceptually how people sometimes think of Allah. To me, seems in a very masculine way.
Yeah.
Not saying that Allah is masculine,
Yeah.
but the way people interact with
It's a very masculine.
the word Allah, to me, comes across like that sometimes.
I guess that could also be because the tradition that Islam implies or purports to be a continuation of, for example, like the Abrahamic tradition, let's say Judaism, seems a much more overtly patriarchal type of divinity.
Yeah.
So I guess it would be a natural continuation for people to assume it's still the father or that father figure.
Yeah.
And also keep in mind, there's a part of the Quran that says, "Wrong are they who give the angels female names."
Yeah.
So you know, the Quran is coming from the point of view that the angels are neither male nor female, and the same should apply to God Himself, right? But like you said, today people look at Allah as solely male.
Yeah.
And is there an ayah in the Quran that says, "I'm the father of none of you"?
Yeah, but that's it's a rebuttal to the Christian.
The claims about Jesus being
Yeah,
the son.
yeah.
But I'm saying, like in an esoteric sense, you could almost like infer from that it's the mother, not the father. But, I mean, this matriarchal approach.
I think
It's a new one for me. I haven't.
I think it's very healthy to understand both sides, to understand that there are certain aspects that we associate with the male energy, and then there's certain aspects that are quite female. I mean, rahim literally means, what is it? Rahim means what women have.
The womb. The womb. It's rahim, which means womb.
Rahman.
Yeah. Mercy.
I get from Muslims that when we think about an aspect of the divine, although we have words for it, the true expression of that concept is not something that we can really conceive of.
Yeah.
So when we try to define these things as masculine and feminine, I just assume it must transcend these ideas.
I absolutely believe that it does transcend these things. I'm talking from a human-centric position. How do we as human beings interact with these names and these concepts? I'm not talking about from a theological point of view. I'm not saying that Allah is masculine or female.
It's like a relatability.
And then how does that manifest in human beings?
So what I think is that if you look at the patriarchal gods and the war gods, I think what they try to do with Islam is they try to merge the two. That's why you have the feminine aspect of the Kaaba as well as the masculine aspects. You know, the do not turn the other cheek, because that would be feminine, right? So it's like a merger. Of course it would be. You know, you smite the enemy from the left.
I mean, I know a lot of females be like...
That language is definitely patriarchal.
But I resist the temptation to attribute all like pacifist language with femininity.
Yes.
Hell hath no fury.
Like a woman's scorn, right? Like a woman's wrath.
Yeah, and there are many examples in nature where it's the females that are doing
the prayer mantis kills literally. It's
or even amongst, I mean, the male lion has a role, but it's the females that go hunt.
I think I personally, honestly, I really think it's I think it's a very interesting concept, and I think people should be able to. I know about Jung. I've read here and there stuff about Jung, but Jung talks about anima and animus, you know, and this idea that there's these two aspects in every one of it. I know one guy, one guy here. His name is Will, and I found it very interesting. He's like, no, he disagrees with the idea of like a male having feminine energy within him. He says that it's just that male just has to nurture a more gentle aspect to masculinity that exists. So he says masculinity is more a spectrum that crosses over to aspects that are very similar to the feminine, but a man
never cross over.
But a male essentially can never be or have feminine energy.
No, actually, he's wrong, because there's no such thing as a male if you look at it. A male is merely a defective female. That's why we have breasts that don't work, and that's why we are also supposed to be XX, but we turn out being XY because the other part of the X is broken off. It's not really a Y, it's just a broken off chromosome. So,
but nevertheless, we become different.
So, put it this way, the male's role in nature is more of a drone, simply to impregnate the female. That's the only role. So,
but who protects the female when she's pregnant?
That's supposed to be the role of other females. So you see, under a matriarchy, it's actually supposed to be good for us. We're supposed to be having our own sweet time, doing nothing when women handle everything. But the default came about as a result of males taking up responsibility, thinking they're supposed to be in charge. That's why government by its nature is supposed to be feminine. And that's why males were only generals back in the day. So we only engage in militaristic things at times of wars. So if there's no war, females are in charge. And that's what the matriarchy is. And that's what we are here trying to bring back.
But I really struggle with this idea of matriarchy. It somehow being a predominant system that people live under, because historically,
if there is peace, matriarchy would reign.
I mean,
the only time
the
that matriarchy will
Spartans,
not reign.
the Spartans were very used to be very peaceful because no one would want to really mess with them, and they were farmers most of the times. But the females understood very well that they were a means of production of soldiers, unfortunately. So this idea that like there was this place where like matriarchy was like had been the origin state, I don't think that's ever been real.
India was very much matriarchal. Most of the temples were actually, you would see female figurines and female statuary everywhere. It was when the Aryans invaded that they introduced the patriarchal elements, and that's why I was mentioning the laws of Manu earlier. Yeah. The laws of Manu are horrible against females. Yeah. But the original Indians were supposedly matriarchal.
But Greece was a very patriarchal society, and the Romans were, but then they had all these deities who were females as well. I honestly...
That's a spillover of the time that the females were in charge. And that's what I was trying to say with, if you look at Islam, it was a primordial goddess.
I think, honestly, I just think it's a reactionary situation that we're in right now, and it's a good reaction because we are questioning things and we're negotiating what actually works for us. But I think there is a hint of anachronism going on, because we're sort of like here and we're dealing with feminism at the moment, we're dealing with gender pay gap, and then we're looking back at history and we're kind of trying to impose ourselves to history. I think that historically people organize themselves the way, not always in the most just way, I'm not going to argue that. But I don't think that's the big problem of humanity.
Society is organized in such a way that those who would win in a fight are at the top.
That's in times of war. But if there's peace that's reigning, who's going to be on top? Your mother.
Sure, I understand. Because you're going to be like, even the father is the head of the family, the mother is the neck that turns the head. I get that. But in a world where power is coveted, for power then to be in the hands of a woman, when locked in a room together, a man and a woman, only one of them would walk out. Why would a man who wants power allow a woman to have it when he can take it?
Again, you want power because of resources. So it's about competition economics. It's about capitalism. And all of these things are synonyms for the patriarchy. But if there's a state of, an extended period of peace, what's going to return is the matriarchy. So therefore, you can argue that patriarchy equals war. That's what it is.
Is patriarchy a response to war, or is it a cause?
No, it is war itself. It doesn't exist without war. It cannot exist without war.
Yeah, I need to read a bit more into this in order to make very concrete comments. But I still struggle. I am more about thinking of the third way. Okay, let's imagine a third way, because I feel like this is too much steeped into the flesh. And it's too much steeped into short-sightedness of human potential. I'm more interested in human potential. The human potential that a young girl can have, and the human potential that a young boy can have. And again, I'm not doing the whole thing, I don't see color, right? When people say, I don't see color. No, I'm saying a female is a female, and females, from my experience that I had with females in my life, is that there is something very sweet, something very whimsical and powerful.
Very, very great that you use those terms. So we can then argue that religion itself took an orthogenesis from the point of view that males were trying to curtail their masculine energy. So in other words, males were trying to be females by taking religion. Religion serves a purpose for males of making males less harmful to society.
It puts them
right?
in a subordinate position.
I was trying to just.
So religion is actually trying to modify.
I was
males
actually
into
just trying to
females.
just take it like.
Yeah, I was just trying to.
Elevate, you're trying to elevate.
I was just trying to define. He took it elsewhere. I was just trying to.
That's it. If you look at it, that's it.
I mean, I think you kind of hijacked what I was saying.
It's like narrative, you know. When you talk about patriarchy, the non-patriarch is children, mother, father, right? And then supreme being, the Lord. That is Islamic patriarchy. So the man, the husband, is subordinate to the Lord, and the wife subordinate to the
Why
husband.
Lord? Why not lady?
So why is the lady?
You see the way he described that. You know the way Faisal just described that. I am currently investigating that. If that is really how it is, in terms of society, on a societal level, is that I understand that I grew up in a family where my dad was the head of the family, and then my mom was there. In the house, it was different. My mom was very like, but my dad was the guy who would go out and work and this, and my household is very similar. And I do, and we talked about this earlier. And I believe that Islam has placed responsibility upon the man to take care of the family, to be protective of the family. But that's a very beautiful hadith. The Prophet says, the father is a shepherd. Sorry, how are you? Alhamdulillah. The father is a shepherd in a household, and the mother is the father is the shepherd of the family. The mother is the shepherd of the household, right? And then it breaks down in that way. So in terms of being a shepherd, is assigning responsibility. So I feel like Islam is creating that hierarchy, but it's creating that hierarchy with responsibilities and encouragement and freedom to do certain things and behave in a certain way. So I think I'm really trying to run away from this like feminist and red pill conversation. I'm not interested in that because I feel like it's very, very limited and it's very it doesn't reflect human history.
No,
you know?
it does actually.
Do you reckon?
Everything in nature is.
Faisal, help me here. I don't know.
We live in a dual universe.
Yeah.
Everything is divided along gender,
Okay.
right? So we have three types of feminists. Feminists who are what is known as deconstructive. They try to argue that the whole gender roles is something that was created in the first place and it has no natural
Simone de Beauvoir and those people.
Or organic origin.
Yes, correct.
And then there are those who say no, there's actually it's a question of nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
So I'm with the school of thought that whatever you observe in nature has polarities, right? So throughout history we can see a struggle between the sexes. And it's a power struggle. It has always been a power struggle. Yeah. So for
really?
So for you to sit here and say,
So about power.
So for you to sit around and say that, no, I'm not going to look at religion through the lenses of this polarity, I think it's, taking an easy way out.
No, but look.
We don't describe the polarity, but how do you know it's based on power or will to dominate? Because that's what you're implying. That's an assumption on your behalf, isn't it?
No, what I'm saying is, if you look at traditional Sunnism, you can clearly see that this is a patriarchal religion. However,
yes, no doubt about it.
There is we need to be specific. The specificity of definitions is always good when you're trying to embark on something like this. So that's why I desist from saying Islam. I stick to saying Sunnism.
So that means there's a message in that aspect of the religion which maybe doesn't echo or adds something to the message of the Quran.
Yeah, because when I look at the Quran, I do see what he's talking about. I see it as a more genderless kind of God. So rather than putting it under the category of, this is clearly a war god versus a fertility goddess, I would say it's somewhere in the middle. But if you look at Sunnism as a philosophy itself, then it's certainly more in the war god category. That's what it is.
So the thing is, when I say patriarchy, right, has got negative connotations nowadays because like feminism hijacked the term to make it look it's all about struggle for power and this.
Yeah, we
and
need
that.
we need to try and
So,
separate the
I would
terminology
argue that
modern
no,
use.
I would argue Islam is a patriarchal religion.
Yeah.
Just like all traditional societies across the world are.
Yeah.
And I would say there's good reason behind it. And it's not based on power or what to dominate.
Yeah.
It's based on social cohesion, based on social harmony.
Yeah.
It was the best deal that both genders have come to realize. The man is outside the house for competing with other man for resources, for this, for that, utilizes what he's best at. And the woman dominates the household. She raises the children, she nurses the children, and she does what she's best at. And both of them benefit most out of it. So I would argue it's based on social harmony.
Yeah.
It's the deal that man and woman come across over time to do what's best for them. It's like in economics.
Yeah.
Specialization, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make apples and bananas, and you make apple bananas. No, you make bananas, you better make bananas. I'm better making apples, I'm better making apples, and we'll start trading. And we're both relatively richer because of it now.
Yeah.
Because we're specifying what we're good at, right?
Yeah.
That's the basic principle in economics. And I think that's the exact same thing that we see in the patriarchy. It's the best way to create society. That's why all traditional societies have been patriarchal.
So do you think that the roles of the genders are being muddied now because we live in a less warlike society?
Brilliant question.
That's a good point.
And were we more acutely aware of our need to defend our territory?
Brilliant question.
We would be more likely than to adopt those traditional.
I agree.
Society would be less inclined to rid itself of those traditional roles.
I would argue the closer society is to war, the closer society is to,
the more tightly it clings
the
to
more
those traditional roles.
because that's traditionally what works. You see in Ukraine right now, right? There's a lot of feminists until the war kicked off. And then they all jumped on the trains and they were all making sandwiches for the guys. But the guys went out
And
to the
what
front line.
proportion of the people on the front line in those trenches, starving in the freezing cold, how many of them do you think are women?
See the point I'm trying to make? Now,
So then patriarchy is war. That's the point I tried to make earlier.
War's part of life.
Connection.
It's not all of it, but it's part of it. I would argue making a good point just now. Now with the Industrial Revolution, most of the roles that women traditionally do in the household.
But isn't religion supposed to reduce war? Isn't that the goal of religion?
We'll go on to that. Back to this point. So if you look at now the Industrial Revolution, the washing machines, with the this, with the that, most of that roles a woman traditionally doing back in households are gone now. So she used to see the machine, she used to do this, she used to wash the clothes, she used to do this. Now because of the previous Industrial Revolution, most of her roles have been taken away by her, right? AI, whatever you want to call it.
But you can say that happens on both sides, right? Like drones,
Exactly, we have drones,
No, on both sides, I agree, but I'd say more to gender roles, right? Because if you look at women back in the days, 100 years, 200 years ago, they say woman and man needs to be an economical relationship, right? If you was on a farm, the guy would marry a woman, even if he didn't love her, because she brought a lot of utility to the household. She would sew things, she would make the cotton.
Yeah, we got that. So the more advanced, the more developed we get, the more these gender roles get muddied, as he said.
Yeah, exactly. So
right?
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry I can't give the citation, or the reference, but I heard someone say something profound recently, and it was that every time a society experiences this blurring of the lines between the genders, it comes right before the breakdown of that society. So I guess if it was to follow that, if it was to follow that pattern now, we should probably expect like some warlike conditions to.
No, he's wrong. It's just the breakdown of patriarchy. That's why he just doesn't like that. So he's just trying to come up with that.
Degeneracy, like the Romans, there was a rise of the Greeks, or pedophilia, or this, or that, or people become more sexualized. I say we see it now in the West of LGBT, right? It's the idea of drag queens, children should be sexual. So
yeah, but I mean, this has been around like in Greek society. Women weren't actors; men played the women.
Forever,
Or like, for example, in the beginning of the the Greek tragedies when they.
I'll be back in a second.
It wasn't. There were no female lesbians. All the actors were men. Only the men played the roles of the women as well. So you had men dressing up as women for thousands of years.
was that towards the end of the empire?
No, this is like as far back as
and then they will attack
the Greek epics. So this was even before Greece was established.